It's time, my man. Let's look ahead. Nebraska, Akron. And I'm looking at the comments. We're getting on the text line. And Joe in Boulder. Oh, Boulder. That figures. All right. By the way, there is no way. That should be a comma, dude, not a period. I mean, if you're going to knock us from Boulder, you got to get grammatically correct here. But if you're in Nebraska, grammar doesn't matter. All right. By the way, there is no way Nebraska is covering the spread. Now, last time I looked, it was 34.5. Is it still 34.5, Jake? Do you know?
I can look it up, but yeah, that was the last time I heard too.
So I actually, I'll give away my. Should I give away my score prediction?
You
said it.
Yeah.
I said it earlier this week. I think I just put it out on social media as well. I always reserve the right to change my mind. I'm not changing my mind. If it is still 34.5, what is it?
34.5. Yep.
What's the over under? I always make you look up stuff, and it's never right in front of you.
Like 47.5.
That's what it was last time. We're going to go with 47.5 because that's what it was yesterday when I looked. I am taking Nebraska to cover, but the under. Good guys, 38. The other guys, do you think we're going to shut them out?
Ooh,
that's what I'm pausing for.
Yeah.
Because Wyoming shut them out.
That's right.
The other guy's 3.
Uh-oh.
I have 3 just because the odds of getting shut out twice in a row. I mean, you truly have to be really bad on offense. Also, that ball bounces funny ways. Maybe they get a random bounce of the ball. The drive starts at our 30 and they go backwards 5 yards and make a 52-yard field goal for all I know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to go 38-3. They don't get shut out 2 weeks in a row, although that is one of my personal goals for Nebraska. Like, you want to bounce back as a defense. Shut out the opponent. I don't care who it is. Like, just shut out. The first shutout I was ever a part of was Troy State. You got to keep in mind, this was when Troy State first joined Division I football. So you look back on it now, like, oh, Troy's relatively decent. I mean, they're not like a power or anything like that or a Power 4 team. But it was like just shutting anybody out is never easy to do because the ball does bounce funny. So my goal for Nebraska's defense is to actually shut out Akron, who lost 10-0 to Wyoming last week. It was actually 3-0 with 5 minutes to go. It's part of the reason I'm taking the under. I want to see more explosive plays from our offense. And I want the defense to bounce back. Akron, they play physical football. Now, they're not going to overwhelm you with individual talent, but they play physical football. So my score prediction, good guys 38, other guys 3. I got Nebraska to cover. I am taking the under. Where you at on this, Jake?
Yeah, not a bad prediction. I probably go land in the same type of area. 45-7 is probably what I'd probably fall on. Like you said, chance for an upset or for a shutout here for Nebraska. We're all going to be cheering for it. Haven't had one since Dominican Sue was on campus. His final game against Arizona and Nick Foles and them. So it's been a while.
That long?
It's been a long time since Nebraska's had a shutout. So again, maybe that also factors into why I might not predict that one here. But the Zips are again, it's kind of the same type of thing when you kind of break down their game and go away from, well, they didn't even score, so that's a pretty rough start, right? But you only lose to 10 to Wyoming. That's not too bad. Now, this is also, it should be stated, it's not Craig Bohl's Wyoming. Craig Bohl went 9-4 there his final year a couple years ago, handed it off. I think they won 3 games last year, and then obviously starting off with this victory over Akron. So they've got a little bit to do there too. But I think hopefully for Nebraska, they finish off a lot of drives. I don't want to see a lot of field goals. I'd love to see our field goal kicker get, maybe a few in, but hopefully kind of finishing off drives, be able to show off a little bit more of an explosive offense, which potentially there, which was a big topic this week too. And a lot of that had to do with Cincinnati's defense, not letting anything behind them. They specifically played for you not to get those big plays against you. But even still for Nebraska and coach, I think a couple of the coaches said it, but I think it was Holgerson said, you got to break some tackles. They only had like 4 tackles. You got to be able to do that. Downfield blocking again, being questioned in here. So again, a lot of it is kind of sharpening what they had going into this game or what maybe was not quite up to the expectation from week 1. Here's your opportunity to kind of fix that. And I think we'll all be happy if that's the case. Again, this is a close game. We got a lot more to talk about, which it might be good for radio programming, not good for the season maybe altogether.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is your official? You said 45-7?
Yeah.
So you got more scoring than I do. I want to revisit that. Apparently you see some more explosive plays coming. And I want to explore why you think that'll happen. I'll explore why or why not I think that may or may not happen. But first, you don't have the paper in front of you, but I know you know it by heart. Jake, what is that text line number?
402-464-5685.
Nicely done. You know how bad that would have been had you got that wrong. I had complete faith in you. Text us in. What is your score prediction for Nebraska versus Akron Saturday? By the way, somehow I'm looking at the comments from the morning show, and one guy thinks that Jake Sorensen and Steve Sipple should be institutionalized. What are your thoughts on that in general, Jake Bakoven? Jake Sorensen says agreed. What are your thoughts?
Well,
Bach?
it depends on, again, just what triggers him. After a Miami Dolphins loss, I think that maybe that would be the case. And Sipple, I don't know what necessarily triggers him. We'd have to kind of figure out a little bit more on that.
All right. Let's send us your score predictions. So you seem a little bit more confident because I took the under. I even went back and looked at last year's scores when I was coming with my score prediction for this game. Do you know how many times we scored over 38 points last year? Which I picked 38 for a reason. You know how many times we scored over 38 last year?
Wisconsin? One?
UTEP was 40.
UTEP, okay.
And Wisconsin was 44
That's
twice.
right.
That's it. Now, we're playing a team that just allowed 10 points to Wyoming. So I'm like, I even looked at the Boston College game because I remember we could move the ball in that game early on. We had 20 points at the end of it. We've got to find a way. We found a way to take care of the ball. What was it, 3 or 4 penalties in the first game of the year? That's actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
I got no problem with that. But explosive plays. Now, how much of that is Cincinnati's better than they were? How much of that is Cincinnati, the way they play defense? And in fairness, you break down the film, they were trying to keep everything in front of them, so I get it. All right, but the ability to get that key block at the right time. Rule talked in his press conference on Monday. He seemed relatively frustrated with especially the return game and special teams. Like, we average 1.5 yards per punt return. Now, we're one game in. Okay, Ja'Cory Barney's too good for that to continue to happen as a punt returner. But you got to get the key block, the key time. You got to make the right blocks consistently on your return game, and that'll get you some free points right there. Gives you easy points, kind of like Vincent Shaver's fumble that he caused, gave Nebraska the ball 24-yard line of Cincinnati. Can we have special teams that gives us good field position, whether it's Akron's 24 or Akron's 48 or on their side of the field, maybe their 5-yard line, the 40-yard line, whatever the case may be. So can we do that special teams-wise and then offensively? True playmakers don't go to the ground easy. I go back to that Florida State game. I go back to their running backs. I go back to their quarterbacks. When they ran wide receiver screens, we're going to move on from that last year. Like, those dudes made people miss. Part of that was lack of effort on Bama. Not lack of talent. Number 1 talent composite ranking team in the country. But Florida State found a way to break tackles and make guys miss. We've got to be able to do that more consistently. So for me, I'm going to stick with 38-3. I love your score prediction. I don't love that you predicted a touchdown for them, but I love that your score prediction is higher offensively for us. So I hope you're right and I'm wrong, although our spread is relatively the same. But why do you feel Nebraska is going to have more explosive plays this year?
Well, a lot of this has to do,
Saturday,
with Akron's defense. Again, maybe a good start there against Wyoming, not a bad start anyway. But you look at it its last several years, and they're kind of resetting. I mean, like I said, a lot of these different teams are. So I don't know if it's completely fair to look at their defensive numbers from last year. But they were 108th in the nation, giving up 414 yards per game, 110th in the nation, giving up 32 points per game, 124th in the nation, and only creating 10 turnovers. They had 1 interception last week. If they get one this week, they will match what they had all of last year. They only had 2 picks last year, and only 18 sacks last year. That was 111. So their defense really struggled last year. Again, looking good in the opener against Wyoming. Still, like I said, kind of questioning what Wyoming program is that. Is that the program from a few years ago that was under Craig Bowl in general, which was a pretty darn good program, or the 3-9 team from the year before? First year, it's tough to tell. So maybe that defense did pick it up. They just don't have a whole lot of numbers to support that. And then the other thing is, you look at regardless their last, I think, 6 matchups against Power 4 opponents. None of them has been particularly close. So I just think this is a program in Akron too. You look at it, I think it's since 2005, something like that. They've only had 2 winning seasons. I mean, it is a tough place to win, and it's a tough place to build a program. They're picked 11th out of 13th in the preseason MAC poll, tied for 11th actually, so 11th through 12th. So it's just a game. It's partially prediction hope and partially just hope. I want to see Nebraska return to this again. I don't think Akron has a very good running game that's going to get going. it's going to be bad if it does, right? That's what the kind of the concern for
Ooh.
Nebraska coming in. I don't know how this Akron team scores too particularly well against Nebraska. I think that defensive secondary is going to feast on Akron's passing game. So it's all kind of it's dependent on if the Zips can get anything going in their ground game, if they can keep this competitive in my mind.
So non-quarterback related, we allowed 112 rush yards last week, which sure sounds a lot better than 202 rush yards. When you factor in quarterback, mostly him scrambling and running around. Not a lot of them were quarterback designed runs. Few, not a lot. If Akron rushes for over 100, then we have legit concerns in our ground game. I do not expect them to. I really don't. My goals for the defense, hold Akron under 100 yards rushing, 4 sacks, and I'm not even calling for the shutout because just like not only do you have to play really well, you got to get a little bit lucky too because all they need is a little bit of luck in their field goal range. But a shutout defensively. When you look at Akron as a whole, their head coach, Joe Moorhead, 4th season as their head coach. He's 8-29 so far as their head coach. Not great success at Akron so far. It's his 10th career season as a head coach, 52-54 overall. So he had a winning record before he got to Akron. Actually almost won 60% of his games. Now he's under 500 since he's been to Akron. This is now his 4th season I mentioned before. He was the head coach. Okay. Or he came, prior to Akron, Moorhead spent 2 seasons as the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach at Oregon in 2021, 2022. Moorhead came to Oregon from Mississippi State, where he was the head coach there 2018, 2019, led the Bulldogs to back-to-back bowl appearances. Actually, he was actually the first Mississippi State head coach to do so in their first 2 seasons in program history. All right. And it also sparked the Bulldogs to a pair of triumphant wins over Egg Bowl rivals Ole Miss. All right, there may have been a fire hydrant. I'm going to go with that incident at the end of one of the games. If you get what I'm talking about, great. If not, I'm not going to elaborate. But that contributed to them winning. But, hey, that's part of them winning as well. All right, obviously Mike Leach came in after him and did some good things at Mississippi State. You look at Akron. I mentioned this earlier. All right, they averaged 228 yards per game. Through one game, they got 228 yards. All right, 139 yards through the air, 89 rushing. So my new goal is to keep them under 80 yards. If they got 89 versus Wyoming, you got to keep them under. I knew that too. I forgot. We got to keep them under 80. All right. And their quarterback, 16 of 38. I'm not great at math, but that's well under 50%.
That's right.
That's not under 40, is it? Can you do some quick math?
I can try to.
So we allowed a 52% completion percentage versus Cincinnati. We had our highest pass defense grade in over a decade as a secondary. And 42%, all right, they come in completing 42% of their passes so far, one game against Wyoming. Man, I tell you what, we should not expect them to be able to pass the ball. We should be loading the box to try to stop the run, blitzing to try to get after the quarterback, because we should be able to match up with these guys one-on-one on the outside. And the defense should have, it's good. I don't want to say a breakout game because Akron, no matter what you do, unless you literally win 223-0, you know, the all-time worst blowout in college football history is 222-0.
That's right.
They literally had more pick sixes that game than the opposing quarterback had completed passes. If you look back at that, this is like the 1890s, by the way. I Googled one day, what's the worst blowout in college football history? And I read about it. It was like a month ago. I thought it was very interesting. Unless you win like 223-0, you're not really going to have a breakout game versus Akron, but you can get going in the right direction. You can build on something. You can lay the foundation for what you can be and hopefully work towards the rest of the year. Offensively, this is my bigger question. I expect the defense to have a good day. Offensively, the explosive plays, because this is an Akron defense. Only gave up 3 points for 55 minutes. Only gave up 10 the entirety of the game last week versus Wyoming, not an explosive offense. But again, you got any other final thoughts on the offense being more explosive?
Well, I think part of it too is again a bit of a hope that if Nebraska is using this game correctly, it's not necessarily beating the spread that I care about. It's about setting up the offense for moving forward. You scored 20 points in that first game. You're going to need to do better than that. That's right around where Nebraska's been each of the last 2 years. That's been a struggling offense. It looked a lot cleaner. I'm not saying it's the same. Again, that's against one of your better, a pretty good defense there in Cincinnati anyway. But I want to see Nebraska. I mean, carries for Emmett is a hot topic because he just had a lot of touches, but I don't want to see the starters necessarily pulled when the game is in hand. I think Nebraska needs to work on some things and getting this offense going and not necessarily wait till Michigan to do so. So I hope that they kind of keep the top offense rolling. But then again, from there, that's when you kind of think maybe the second offense even can put some points on the board as well. Nebraska has some players and playmakers. And it's always kind of just goes back to me. I don't want to headline one guy, but Marlon Lucky looked really good when Marlon Lucky was the fastest guy in the field.
Mm-hmm.
At other times, it was kind of tough to get him going. And that's against the better opponents. That's just, again, sorry if you're Marlon Lucky, but he's particularly kind of stuck out to me as one of those guys. I think Nebraska has the athletes advantage in this game. And so in certain games, I think you have guys that are going to be a little bit more explosive, that are already explosive, and guys that maybe you wouldn't deem as explosive that have a chance to make a little bit more explosiveness to this game. So that's my hope is that Nebraska can get this offense going and rely on that athleticism advantage to get some big plays out of it.
I don't think you have to do anything crazy. If you got a 5-yard slant route, run a 5-yard slant, catch the ball and go. Because you are going to be, as an overall whole, bigger, faster, stronger. Make the blocks when necessary. You should be able to break enough tackles and be faster enough than the other guys that a 10-yard catch turns into a 20-yard catch. And you get that extra block, and all of a sudden now a 40-yard run turns into an 80-yard touchdown run. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to press to try to make the big play, so to speak. Just make the basic play, make the basic block, break the basic tackle, for lack of a better way of putting it, because you have that ability and they will naturally come. And you start by doing it this weekend versus Akron. So I expect to see more explosive plays. I'm curious to see how many more and how explosive we are. We were efficient. We took care of the ball. We dominated time of possession. Did a lot of really good things. 79% completion percentage. Praise the Lord, preach hallelujah, and amen. I don't want to press and all of a sudden now you're turning the ball over. Now you're completing 52% of your passes or whatever number you want to throw out there. Like, you don't have to press. Just like you watch Jeremiah Smith versus Texas, maybe the best player in America. He had 2 very simple passes in the first half that he dropped because he was trying to catch it and take it to the house. Like, he doesn't have to do that. Catch the ball, make the basic play, make a guy miss here and there, break a tackle here and there, get a good block here and there, 10 turns into 20, then a big play of 20 turns into 40, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we can start with that this weekend. All right. I do want to, when we come back, you brought up a couple of interesting topics. Amount of carries for Emmett Johnson, because Rule made it very clear, and I quote, "I was not happy," end quote. That was Rule in Monday's press conference about more running backs not getting in. Now, it wasn't some sort of divisiveness thing with him and Dana. That's what Rule wanted, but it's Dana's decision. So he left it up to Dana, and he trusts Dana. I guarantee we're going to see Isaiah Mosey, Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson. I want to see those guys in the game as much as possible. Number one, Emmett's going to carry the workload. Let's not make him carry the workload any more than necessary. Final thoughts, Nebraska, Akron. You gave your prediction. Beyond who's going to win and lose and beyond the score, at the end of the game, when the game is over, okay? Because everyone knows how they felt after the Cincinnati game. How do you want to feel after the Akron game? Like what's the feeling you want to have about Nebraska's performance that you just watched?
Just confident that they took strides forward. I think that's the biggest thing. If it's a close game, we're all going to get nervous, right? If they go in there, take care of business, hold Akron's running game down. It provides some explosive plays on offense. I think a lot of that is we're going to look at the opponent, sure, but at the same time, you're going to say, okay, well, they can do it against a lesser opponent. Now you just kind of build off of that. So I think that's the biggest thing I'm kind of looking out for Nebraska. By the way, there's a lot of games that are of interest tomorrow, but you brought it up with Cincinnati. Not a bad idea to look out for them. Tomorrow at 2:30, they will play Bowling Green, who is a bowl team last year out of the MAC. So maybe you can get more of an indication of who Cincinnati is coming out of that. But again, for Nebraska, I think, again, a lot of the things they did, low penalties, that was great. Continue that. And then the biggest thing I'm looking for here is to keep that turnover tire off the sideline. Akron has, the turnover chains, all that sort of stuff. Akron puts a full-blown tire on the neck of their player that creates a turnover.
Seriously?
They really do.
They have many neck injuries on that team? They put a tire around the neck?
Like a car tire around their neck. But they
Why?
created 10 turnovers last year. So the
Why
turnover
that?
tire didn't make a.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm just like, why? Why a turnover? Because it's turnover tire. Is that why?
So
it just sounds good.
The zippers or the zips, the zips used to be the zippers.
We used to be the bug eaters. We can't say much.
Right. So we can't complain. But they had like a tire factory in Akron. That I think was where all that came from. So
Okay.
It also fun to note the
That
under
makes more sense.
John Heisman, who coached there in the 1800s, created or went with created the snap in football. There was no snap in football before. The center would just kind of kick it back or roll it back. But the quarterback that he had that year was so tall that they snapped it, and that created the snap right there in Akron. So a little bit of college football history there for you.
So many things real quick. Is John Heisman, that the Heisman?
It's the Heisman name, yeah.
And he also created the snap.
He also created the snap. He was a part of the reason I think a lot of it, he was development of the scoreboard, the concept of football quarters, the legalization of the forward pass, all the stuff John Heisman had a hand in, including the hike signal also. Along with that snap, I think might have been created in Akron. I know the snap was, I'm not sure about the hike signal.
So the kicker or the center usually just kick the ball backwards?
That's right. This was before the forward pass was
Do you have to block
allowed.
anybody, or was he not allowed to be like, how do you kick it and then turn around and block? How does this work?
So they begin a play by rolling or kicking the ball backwards.
Rolling.
This was before there was any forward pass was illegal too. So if you're thinking snap, I'm not talking about the shotgun. They were not shotgunning it. This was just the straight snap backwards.
Was it Spurrier that it wasn't Spurrier that invented the shotgun? I heard him say that one time, and I never fact checked. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
All right. A lot of interesting stuff there. So they have a tire factory. I've always thought the zips was very interesting. I suppose it's an improvement over zippers. Should we make the players eat bugs after they force turnovers? Because we used to be the bug eaters? That's a terrible idea.
I don't think we should do that.
All right. Sorry. Anything else? I kind of got enamored with some of the things you were saying. It was very interesting. Anything else before we go to break here?
That's all my little facts for today.
So how I want to feel, this is going to make no sense, but it's what I said after the UTEP game last year. I want to feel how I should feel. How I should feel is they couldn't run the ball. They struggled to pass. Maybe they found a way to score one touchdown or a field goal, as much as I'd love a shutout, but the defense looked noticeably better. Offensively, let's stay efficient. 3-4 turnovers or not turnovers, penalties or less as a team. Hopefully you stay with the donut with the turnover. I guess hopefully you win the battle, but no more than one turnover. Let's stay clean. All right, and just some explosive plays. It doesn't have to be a triple, quadruple option reverse pass. Just like a few plays that break, and then a key block, and one guy makes two or three guys miss, and then his speed, he's just faster than everybody else. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be a million of them. Just like a half a dozen maybe. Explosive plays. So I want to see us continue to do well what we did last week, which was solid kicking game in the special teams, discipline, took care of the ball, efficient on offense. The improvements are in the return game. A few more explosive plays to a whole lot more explosive plays. Somewhere in there would be all right with me. Offensively and defensively, they should not get 90 yards rushing. They shouldn't get 80 yards rushing. They got 89 versus Wyoming. Okay. And I want to see a pass defense that looks the exact same, just a few more sacks up front. 4 would be ideal. So not to be too crazy. 4 sacks, less than 80 yards rushing, a few more big plays in the return game and offensively, and just continue to do what we did well last week with just some tweaks and improvement. I don't want to see things we did well last week be taken for granted, and then all of a sudden we're not doing them well in an effort to try to stress ourselves or press to make big plays, or press to get a sack, or press to break a big run or catch a big ball, and then all of a sudden you're not doing well what you did before. Keep doing well what you did before, and just add the basic little things, and they will come and they will happen, and we'll get better over time.